All right, I think that we are live at this point. Good thing this isn't a Zoom call. Oh man. Let's see if this is working. Yeah. What? Okay. All right, I think that we are live. What's up, everybody? Let me just adjust this ever so slightly. Oh man. There we go. Okay. This is working. Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just me and my friends over here, and I don't know if you can see. What's up, everybody? I gotta mute this. Definitely mute that. Yeah. Hopefully you can't see my the man to whom I am deeply in debt, which is not Fedloan, but one Mr. Tom Nook. Also, $198,000 for a one-bedroom house. It's a ripoff. But I don't know what the conversion rate for Animal Crossing is. Anyway, okay. Hearing twice. YouTube Live Studio changed, and it is confusing. But I think I have it fixed because I think I have it muted and whatnot. Yeah. So, anyway, hey everybody. Abolish landlords. I mean, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. They might, landlords might get abolished without anybody doing anything. By which I mean people just not pay rent but not move, and the state doesn't do anything about it. You know? What are you gonna do? Jenna, how's it going? Yeah, no reading guide this week. I just realized my mug is green. So that's gonna look weird. I like it. Yeah, there you go. This is gonna be fun. I own a green screen, and I need to use it because I own a green screen because we're in a pandemic, which I think is fairly self-explanatory. But anyway, no reading guide this week. Reading guide next week for the whole article. We're only talking about the first half of the article today. Yeah. So let me see if there's anybody. Yeah. Aren't we all just dying inside a little bit? Today, so my days are usually set up like this, where I get up in the morning, and because my wife is a learning support specialist, special ed instructor, she has a lot of face-to-face via Zoom meetings with a bunch of people and all kinds of paperwork and stuff like that. And so she has to get that done in the morning, and then I watch Mateo, and then she will watch him after like lunchtime, so I can work in the afternoon. One of the things that Mateo and I do to pass the time and to maintain some semblance of, sanity, normalcy, etc., is we'll hop in the car and we'll go for a drive. And St. Louis offers no shortage of exciting things to see from the inside of a car. So we drive around. We drove for like 45 minutes, and then we get back to the house, and Mateo, who had been calm, just enjoying himself, realizes we're back home, and he's like, "No, not that house, can't do that house," and then decides that we're going to spend the next 15 minutes in the car because the car is not the house, and that's something new, and better than just being stuck in the house. So that's how our morning went. I hope you all had a better morning than that, but everybody's feeling it. Everybody's feeling being stuck inside, being fearful, being unsure of what to do apart from washing your hands, not touching your face, and staying inside. Stay inside. Don't go outside except like on your front lawn or go for a walk, but like stay away from people. It is those of you who are introverts. This is our moment. We were made for this. Anyway, so all right. So today we are going to talk about. Let me get my notes open here. Today we're going to talk about Sylvia Wynter. Sylvia Wynter is somebody who I, much to my dismay, I had never read before. And Wynter is somebody who I'm touching my face. I'm sorry, bad example. But I have washed my hands repeatedly and like Lysoled everything, so I think I'll be okay. But if not, it's because I touched my face. So I had not read Sylvia Wynter before, but I knew that if we were talking about the Caribbean, we had to talk about her. In large part because Wynter is a scholar who transcends disciplines, who interweaves between a variety of disciplines, and then who also ends up producing some really profound meditations that further the work that we have already read, work done by Gros-Figuel, done by Manolo, done by Castro Gomez, done by, all kinds of folks. Quijano, right? And the article itself that we read mentions these things. But one of the things I really appreciated about reading Sylvia Wynter is that her writing style is unlike any other I've really encountered, and she does a really good job of weaving historical ideas from a variety of traditions together into one thought, right? So she will draw from philosophy and from theology and from anthropology and then from something a poet said and then these other things. All of that is just one idea, and it's really, really at first confusing, honestly, but once you, I stand by this with most authors, once you realize and become familiar with the rhythms and patterns of a particular writer, you are able to read them better the more you read. And so as it progresses, as the article progresses, it gets better to read. And so going back and taking notes for our live stream today, it was, I was getting so much more, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what's going on here. That's what's being said here. And I also appreciate it because there are a bunch of different words that Manolo, Quijano, Castro Gomez, others will use frequently. Terms, theories, these sorts of things. And Sylvia Wynter, approaches these with a different perspective, a different take on them, a different set of vocabulary. That's refreshing, really refreshing. So I was excited to read about this and excited to jump into this with all of you. So that is both my way of saying, like, I'm a newbie to her work as well, and also a way of saying I am in no way, shape, or form an expert on what Wynter is talking about. I am along for the ride with you, and so let's hopefully try and figure this out together. All right, so a little bit of background from what I've gathered about Sylvia Wynter. She was born in Cuba to Jamaican parents, but grew up in Jamaica, and eventually went to school at King's College in London. And while she's there, she begins her career as a playwright, as a novelist, as a philosopher, as a literary critic. Like I said, she draws from a bunch of disciplines and does so in a really interesting way. She's written a lot of essays about what it means to be human, but specifically what it means to be human in light of, say, challenging pre-existing notions of what it means to be human that other people have. Right? So, one way of putting it would be that she has numerous essays rethinking the human, or humanity, or humanness, in light of an overrepresentation in all different areas of intellectual discourse of what she calls bourgeois European men. So you might have heard this term bourgeois before. You might have heard of bourgeoisie, something being bougie, that sort of a thing. And I think we've talked about it a little bit in class, but just for those who might not be as familiar with the terminology, this is arising out of French culture, but primarily finds its chief point of use in Karl Marx class distinctions and way of analyzing human societies, specifically in his work on capital and labor and things of that nature. And so you have like the proletariat or the working class, the workers of the world, that sort of a thing. Then you have a kind of middle class that he calls the bourgeoisie, and the bourgeoisie are those who benefit from the system as is. They are oftentimes people who, if they are not those who own the means of production, they are the ones who benefit from it, upper management, that kind of a thing. And so in that kind of class system, those who are bourgeois are those who have something of a comfortable life, benefiting from a system, even though they might not be the highest rung of everything. And so where that comes into play here is that when Wynter is talking about bourgeois European men being a standard of what it means to be human, there's a particular set of advantages socially, economically, politically, racially, gender-wise, that come into play that are not experienced by everybody, but the experience of these bourgeois European males is universalized. This is something we are familiar with, I would say pretty much at this point in our class. We're familiar with this line of argument. All right, so a couple of other things as well that Sylvia Wynter brings to the table. Sociogenic analysis is back. So we talked about this a little bit back when we were all together before spring break, talking about chapter 5 of Black Skins, White Masks by Frantz Fanon. And in that, Fanon is bringing forward this idea that we are constructed just as society is constructed, not on our own as these individual things, but connected to all of these other elements: culture, politics, government, religion, art. All of these things have a role in shaping what it means to be human for us. And Wynter takes this idea and really runs with it. She develops something called the sociogenic principle, right? Which is to say that our myths, our origin narratives, they directly relate to and interact with let me make sure I'm getting this right. The endogenous neurochemical behavior, the endogenous neurochemical behavior regulatory system of the human brain. Another way of putting that, that's a lot of words. Another way of thinking about that would be to say that the stories we tell ourselves, the myths, the origin stories that get passed down to us, these grand narratives, these things shape the way we think in sort of physical neurochemical ways. So as a result, we can't just say that we are biogenetically developed, because that doesn't really capture all of what's going on in human development. But we can't also just say that we are sort of culturally or intellectio-genetically developed, right? That our intellectual capacities develop, and then over here is just like, like a bunch of guts. But both interact together, which I really like, but I wrote my dissertation on Merleau-Ponty, so of course I really like that. Anyway, one of the things that that I really appreciate about Sylvia Wynter's work so far, definitely going to read more. It's very good, I think, is that she sees our contemporary moment as one where a normalized origin narrative of survival by increasing the amount of consumption and accumulation is being challenged by this idea that we all need to work together to live. And this is encapsulated in the phrase, man versus the human struggle. And we'll get into what that phrase in particular means. But this idea of our grand narrative being one of figuring out how to make more efficient accumulation and consumption is I think a powerful way of talking about the moment we are in, right? A news story just came out today talking about how the federal government is going around collecting large amounts of personal protective gear for health workers from a variety of states, and then they are determining who needs it and who doesn't, on the basis of what criteria is not necessarily very well known. There is an aspect of accumulation and consumption going on there that has little to do with like making money. But it's still very much accumulation and consumption that's going on. And I think that it's important to recognize that that narrative plays out even in places where you don't think it would play out. And that framing of things comes from a scholar named Catherine McKittrick, who edited this book that I've got right here. This is Sylvia Wynter on Being Human as Praxis. Very, very good book. Tons of really fantastic scholars in here, including Wynter herself, McKittrick, Denise Ferreira da Silva. I'm probably saying that way more Spanish than it is because I believe she's Brazilian. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Manolo is in here. This book is really fantastic. It also has some green in it. My apologies. The cover has green up here. But anyway, this book is really good. It's from Duke University Press, who currently has a 50% off sale. Not a sponsor, but man, I might be getting a lot of books. 50% off. Duke University Press, it has a lot of really, really, really good stuff. Especially a lot of really, really good stuff on Latin American philosophy and Caribbean philosophy, because Walter Manolo edits a series that's there. I've got my bookshelf right over here, and I'm just looking. I've got like 6 or 7 books from that press. Not a sponsor, not trying to advertise for them. I'm just saying if you can get some good books, 50% off might be something to go for. Anyway, what McKittrick is pushing in her article in this book is that the overall project of Wynter could be identified as what she calls counter-humanism. Counter-humanism, what's meant there? It's this idea of thinking of being human as a practice, as a doing, as a project we take up, rather than as a state or some kind of general thing, a dead concept. And then, trying to think of where I'm going with this. I lost my train of thought. My apologies. I just stared into Mabel's cold, dead eyes, and I knew. Mabel is, Mabel, which one is she? Sorry. Moving on. But this idea of being human as a doing, as effort. Wynter is not, by any stretch, the only one to push this idea, but she does so in a really interesting way. Being human is a praxis. This counter-humanism is an attempt to think the human outside of the concepts and ways of thinking humanity that we've inherited from the Western European tradition. So, anyway, how about we jump into the article? Before we do, I'm gonna look in here. At the chat, see what's going on. Kim doesn't get up Kim, I wish that I didn't have to get up in the morning. That I could sleep in. I got my first good night of sleep in a week last night. Still drinking coffee, but oh no, where'd my head go? Let's see. Harder. Man, Violet, I've got neighbors, and those neighbors really, really don't, at least from what I can observe, take social distancing that seriously. So I feel the annoying part of that. I am very, very grateful for everybody who is in an essential service, in particular, like healthcare workers doing the Lord's work. Incredible, sacrificial people, so worth the praise that is being heaped on them. They are doing amazing work and really deserve our support in all kinds of ways. But really, really thankful for grocery store workers, because, man, it is it's hard out there, and people got to eat. And I'm not saying that we're fine. We're not worried about anything. I'm not worried about anything like that. I'm just saying, it is a beautiful thing to see human beings recognize the gravity of the moment we are in, and who say, I have a job to do, and I'm going to do it because human beings need to eat. They need to be cared for when they're sick. They need their mail to get to them. They need things delivered. These are really kind of profoundly underappreciated roles. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much to all who are having to do that. That said, it's not evenly distributed, right? It's not all of us in this human struggle together. There are groups of people who are disproportionately affected, whether through lack of income coming in because they can't do social gathering events, whether because they are not given any kind of hazard pay, or not given an opportunity to work from home, or whether or not they are forced by their employer, if they want to keep their job, to be an essential service when they might not actually be that essential. In the grand scheme of things, I'm not saying that they're not like important, but it's like there might be somebody who works somewhere who is like, hey, I don't know, I make boutique knots and sell them to people. That's not an essential service. I'm sorry, it's not. That's a reference to Portland, India. Jeff Goldblum and his artisanal knot store. Maybe worth your time. I mean, you got plenty of time. Who knows what your time is worth at this point? Anyway, just wanted to say something like that. Yes, Andrew, you are correct. I was not fully clear about the differences between proletariat, the middle class, and bourgeois. Thank you, sir, for correcting me. Violet, your cough is 100% correct. I definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm real thankful for Animal Crossing, but I didn't have to go to the store to get it. It got sent to me. So, maybe. Flavored fig bars. Sounds like an early 2000s like indie folk band, the Flavored Fig Bars. Except they would probably spell it with the U, just like you. Anyway, okay, I've been all over the place. Too much. Let's jump into this article. So I'm going to talk for a bit, walk through the intro and part one, and then take questions and we'll call it. How about that? Because I gotta go deal with my debt to Tom Nook. Gotta go chop wood, dig up fossils, pick peaches. My island has peaches. Sell them on Bernico's Island. Alright. So, this article, I think it's helpful to begin by talking about the title. And specifically talking about the term unsettling. Right? This is not overcoming, it's not decolonizing the coloniality of being power, knowledge, truth, right? This is unsettling. To unsettle something doesn't mean that you get rid of it. It means that you uproot it. You unsettle it. You make it uncomfortable. But also there's an element of the idea that settler colonialism, one of the forms of colonialism, the form of colonialism that happened in the United States and Canada primarily, to the indigenous populations here, that settler colonialism needs to be unsettled. That coloniality settles a particular kind of epistemic, political, and cultural order that has to be undone. Right? So, what Wynter proposes to do is just that, to unsettle it. But in order to unsettle something, you have to understand that which has to be unsettled. So she starts out with this very, very broad, but I think appropriately broad thesis. She refers to the argument she's making in the paper as the argument. So whenever she's talking about the argument, she means her particular argument she's making in this paper. That the model, she argues that the model of the human as bourgeois Western male presupposes that they have to continue their ongoing imperative of securing the well-being of that present ethnoclass, right? In other words, the idea is that this sort of favored or featured class has the goal is to preserve that class versus the well-being of humans as a species, right, itself. So this is what she refers to as man versus the human struggle. And man here is capitalized, and we'll go into it because she has man one, man two, how these develop, what they mean, and that I think is crucial. But the point here being that man versus the human struggle is the central conflict upon which all these other conflicts take place. Or take part, like they are derivative of this central conflict. Derivative might be too strong a term. And it's important to note here too that she gets very specific, saying that anti-blackness is at the core of many struggles that get wrapped up in this struggle between man versus the human struggle, right? And it throws a complicating wrench in the gearworks of this struggle because there are non-white, non-black groups that benefit from this form of anti-blackness. And so wrestling with anti-blackness becomes a central component of unsettling the coloniality of power, knowledge, being, etc. In her work, and I would say just she's 100% right on that. Wrestling with anti-blackness is essential for anti-colonial struggles. We've talked a bit before about this, about how in Latin America and the Caribbean, it is not a kind of racial panacea, but just as in the United States, there are racial structures and racial discourses and disparities that are oftentimes on the basis of color, more so than what we might deem sort of like racial phenotypes. That might be the same thing. I'm sorry. But their colorism is very prominent within Latin American and Caribbean countries. What is going on? Not receiving data from the encoder. Oh, that's probably... Okay. Hold on. Let's go... Don't use buffering.